In this video, I'm going to show you how we took a client's Facebook ad campaigns and more than doubled how much profit they made in just 30 days. And the crazy thing about this example is that this huge improvement in results came from just one optimization that took less than 5 minutes to implement. Let's get into it. Okay, so let me start by sort of setting the scene and giving a bit of context around this business so that you understand why the change made had such a big improvement in results, okay? So when we took over this client's ad account, before we started working with them, they were generating about a 2.8x return on ad spend across the board. Now that was profitable for them, a product-based business, and they had good margins, it was profitable, but of course they wanted to do better. You know, most advertisers do want to do better than a 2.8x, even if it is profitable for you. Now their advertising was primarily focused on just one product. They sold other things, but this was the product that seemed to get the best results when they ran ads for them. It's what most of their sort of initial customer acquisition was focused around. And lots of businesses end up in this scenario. They might have a whole range of products, but really it's sort of the one on the front end that gets a much lower cost per purchase or a much better return on ad spend than anything else. So you put all your advertising spend into really promoting that. Then of course you can sell your other things with upsells and cross sells and email marketing, SMS marketing, and then retargeting to get people to purchase other stuff and increase the customer lifetime value. So quite common for advertisers to be in this sort of scenario. So their campaign structure, their account structure, was that they had 9 different campaigns running for this one offer, this one main product, right? And the reason why they had 9 different campaigns is they basically had one campaign for each country. And this business was targeting the main sort of English-speaking countries, you know, UK, Canada, US, Australia, etc. And then also some other countries in Europe, ones that speak good English, Western European countries for the most part, right? So they had 9 different campaigns, one for each of those countries. And one of their big challenges, there were obviously others, but one of the big challenges was working out how to allocate resources to their different markets and trying to work out, should we be focusing more in the US because it's the largest market, or should we be focusing elsewhere because there's slightly lower cost per 1,000 impressions, slightly lower CPMs there? Where are we going to be able to build a brand? Should we differentiate between the different markets and have different copy for, say, the US versus the UK versus Australia because there's nuances in the market and things along those lines? That was one of their main challenges that they came to us with when we took over their campaigns. And a lot of advertisers are in that situation where they've got lots of different options they could take, whether it's different product ranges or advertising in different markets, and they're trying to work out, should we or shouldn't we? So I'll explain what we did in a second. Before I do that, I just want to quickly let you know about our done-for-you Facebook and Instagram advertising services. So if you're faced with this challenge or any other Facebook and Instagram ad-related challenge, and you're just thinking, you know what, I'd much rather a professional just take this over, get me better results than what I'm getting myself, take all this workload off my hands, and that's exactly what my agency can do. We can take this off your hands, almost certainly get you better results than if you manage it yourself. If that sounds interesting, there is a link in the description below. You can click on that, come through to a page on our website, book in a free no obligation call with one of my team members to find out more about how we might be able to help. So if that's interesting, go ahead and do that, and hopefully we get a chance to work together. So what did we do to improve their results? Well, we changed their account structure. So instead of having those 9 separate campaigns, we combined all those campaigns into one campaign. We didn't just use one ad set though. We kept the different country structure, but at the ad set level. So we effectively had 9 different ad sets, one for each country. Now that's not typically how we would structure things nowadays, by the way, but we felt like it would be right for this business. I'm going to talk more about that and that sort of logic and thought process as we go through this. We also turned on Advantage Campaign Budget, what used to be called Campaign Budget Optimization, which is where the budget is set at the campaign level as opposed to the individual ad set level, and Meta is allowed to allocate budget according to performance. So if they see that certain ad sets are performing better than others, then more budget can be allocated to those and less to the underperforming ones, and that helps improve your results. Again, this is not something we typically use now. We're more likely to set budgets at the ad set level. That's Meta's default, although they don't sort of put a warning up or anything like that if you do turn on Advantage Campaign Budget. But we really wanted that budget allocation to occur between those different countries, between those ad sets. And we wanted it to happen dynamically. Because you might be thinking, well, why not just manage it yourself and reallocate the budget manually? Well, you're not going to be able to react normally as quickly as what Meta is. Meta's also better able to predict changes, which I think is becoming a more and more important part of Meta advertising. Is if Meta sort of knows, if it knows that a big event is coming up and has recognize patterns in user behavior and therefore can predict what that's likely to mean for certain advertisers, that could play into your results. You're less likely to be able to do that, like as a person, as an individual. And so we wanted that to happen dynamically. Allocate to the best performing ad sets, but also change that if it changes over time, which actually proved to be really, really important. Now, this change made a big difference. So within 30 days of implementing this change, we saw the ROAS go from the return on ad spend go from 2.8 to 3.7. So a 30% or so improvement in return on ad spend just from one simple change that took literally a couple of minutes to implement. Now, because this is a product-based business with a cost of goods sold, so like costs associated with the product, and advertising costs remain the same. If you get a 30% more sales whilst fixing advertising costs, you massively increase the profitability of the ad campaign, because once you've taken the previous revenue and you've deducted the cost of goods sold, you've deducted the advertising costs, it was profitable but not massively so. A 30% improvement in return on ad spend whilst not increasing your cost makes the campaign much more profitable. And like I said, we more than doubled the profitability. So it had a really, really big impact just from a very simple thing. Now those numbers might seem quite low, by the way, 2.8x ROAS, 3.7x ROAS, thinking, is that good? This is a large business operating with a very large budget at scale, and you typically see businesses that operate with a very large budget at scale, they do see a lower return on ad spend. Like we could absolutely push this business up to a 6x ROAS, 8x ROAS if we cut their budget by 80% or so. It's kind of a Facebook advertising myth that the more you spend, the better your return on ad spend gets. It's actually the opposite. Now that's often still better, because would you rather make a 20% profit margin on $10 million worth of sales, or would you rather make a 50% profit margin on $100,000 worth of sales, right? Like the actual profit number is much larger at the larger scale levels, even if it's lower as a percentage. Okay, so just to clarify that, if you hear that ROAS numbers are lower as you spend more, you think, well, why would you ever scale? That's why, because you do make more profit in real numbers, provided the campaigns are performing well. So why did this change work in this scenario? Like I already said, we did some things in this ad account that we wouldn't typically do. That wouldn't necessarily say our best practices. Not an issue by any means, but wouldn't be the typical process that we would take. So Meta, as I said, allocated budget to the best performing ad sets. That changed over time. And it's really interesting. So I talked about the improvement results we got after 30 days because I wanted to demonstrate that you can get significant improvements in results sometimes by implementing relatively simple changes, which is why it's so important to test. But we've had this running a little bit longer than, well, a number of months longer than the 30 days, and we've actually seen a pattern that I haven't really seen before, not this obviously, is that Meta will allocate more budget to certain countries during certain times of the month. It's not as simple as saying like, oh, Canada is outperforming Australia, therefore it gets more budget. It's like, no, it's actually changing. Now, I don't exactly know why. My theory for that is because there's cultural differences in those countries, and people are more likely to spend money at different times of the month. So for example, I know that in the UK, payday for a lot of people is a big deal. And therefore they're more likely to spend more around payday, the end of the month, feeling like they've got more money to spend or it's about to come in, sort of thing. So we see a bit more of an allocation towards the UK budget-wise, using Advantage campaign budget around that time, and a little bit less during the rest of the month. That's sort of my theory. But I do think it's very interesting that that is something that's happening, and shows, I think, how smart Meta's algorithm is becoming and how well it's able to optimize and change things on the fly to help you get the best results possible. And we've seen it in this ad account. Of course, in order to track improvements in results like this, or honestly just track Facebook ad results in general, it is crucial that you have accurate data. And the best way to get accurate Facebook ads data is with Hyros. Hyros is the best tracking and attribution software for Facebook and Instagram ads. It's a software that all the big players, including myself, use. I use it to track the results that I generate from my own ads. I also use it for all my organic content as well, which is really useful. So if someone comes through and books a call for our done for you services, for example, I can see exactly where they came from with a lot of accuracy, and that allows me to make decisions in my business, which is really, really helpful. And let me quickly show you how important this is. So I'm in my Hyros dashboard. I've isolated one of our Meta ad campaigns, and I've created a report for it so we can see the data and you can take a look at this. So this campaign spent just under £2,000, generated £15,000 in revenue. But here's the really important bit: reported versus revenue. And in this column, we can see £12,000. Now what that means is that out of the £15,000 that this campaign has actually generated, Hyros has been able to report on the full 15,000 £12,000 of which Meta was not originally able to see. So if we're just looking within our Meta ad account, not using Hyros, we would have seen that £3,000 of revenue was generated from this campaign, and that is not true at all. That is a much lower ROAS number than the actual £15,000 of revenue that was generated. For a number of years now, Meta's ad tracking capabilities have not been as accurate as they once were because all sorts of privacy regulations have come into effect, and it's only heading that way. It's only becoming more and more difficult to get accurate data and track our results as we need to be able to do. This is a relatively extreme case, and the reason why is because Meta has a 7-day maximum attribution window, and this is an ad campaign that's retargeting for one of our services that people usually take a lot longer than 7 days to make a decision on. So if someone clicks on an ad, they often won't convert within 7 days. Meta's simply not able to see that data, and that's where Hyros comes in. The important thing is that you need accurate data, and Hyros takes care of that. So if you want to get better results from your Facebook ads without actually having to touch your ads, go ahead and sign up to Hyros. There is a link in the video description. Now, there are other things that we've done to this client's account to improve results further. But I wanted to just demonstrate and zoom in on those first 30 days and the impact that just one simple change can have on your Facebook ad campaigns. And it's so important to test. And it's also so important to think about things from a first principle standpoint, as opposed to just trying to work out, is it better to use Advantage campaign budget or ad set budgets? Is it better to use, Advantage plus audience or original audiences, or these sorts of things? And everyone just wants a simple answer, so they don't have to think, they don't have to test, they don't have to put in any time or effort. And you can take that approach, but that's not where the best results come from. It's much better to think through, okay, if I go with option B, what is option B designed to do? And how does that differ from what I was already doing with option A? Like, would that make sense in this scenario? Not trying to work out, does it always make sense? Does that make sense? So normally we would use ad set budgets. Normally we would not have 9 ad sets in one campaign. Often we do have separate campaigns for different markets. But we felt like with this business, combining those campaigns into the one campaign, it's the same product offer, and then allowing Meta to dynamically allocate budget to the ad sets, effectively an ad set for each country, so to the different countries according to performance, and have that change over time was really beneficial for this business, and it was. So really important to think about these things from a first principle standpoint. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and I'll keep you up to date with all this stuff and give you examples and so that you can learn and understand and implement the changes that can help you get the best results possible. And along those lines, if you haven't already, I'd strongly recommend you check out this video. That video is my new video on the very latest Facebook ad secrets, tips, techniques, things that will catch you up to speed, make sure you're operating with the very latest strategies and things like that. It'll also give you an edge over your competition that are almost certainly using outdated methods and strategies and techniques, at least in some areas of their Facebook ads. So if you haven't already, go ahead and check this out.